Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. Happy holidays. A few more days before 2025. And I've got Evan Kuterbach from Florida, and he's an e-commerce pickleball brand owner and 8 to 5 escapee. You're going to hear all about his journey from burning out in 9 to 5 grind and starting and achieving financial freedom and controlling his destiny. I really love having entrepreneurs such as Evan come on the show and inspire the guests and add value. So Evan, welcome.
Christopher, thank you so much. Yeah, super excited to be here.
Yeah, briefly, I know your story, but tell the audience, and I'm really excited to dive into the questions.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Evan. I basically started my solopreneur entrepreneurial journey about 2 years ago, but I think like most of your listeners, I've always had the itch to start something. But my path was a little traditional. I went down the normal corporate rabbit hole. I was in corporate sales, corporate marketing positions for about 10 plus years, so a little over a decade. And when my daughter was born 2 years ago, I decided that I was needing a change. I was going down the same path that a lot of my family members and people I knew had gone down. But when my daughter was born, I was like, you know what? I can't keep going on the same path. And so I started to make some changes, and we can dive into a little bit about the changes I made. But yeah, that's really what kind of kicked off my entrepreneurial and solopreneur journey.
Yeah. And so because a lot of audience are listening, and it's end of 2024, beginning of people are making their New Year's resolutions. Some people can't stand their job or their boss. And so what was the pivotal moment that made you decide to leave your 8 to 5 and dive into building your startup?
Yeah, I think for me, I always, when I graduated college and I got into kind of a normal work life, 8 to 5, I wouldn't say I bounced around, but I've had probably 6 or 7 different companies that I've been with in that decade, a few long stretches at some big corporations like Oracle and Canon, like the camera company. But I could never really find a good fit. And ultimately, what I have gathered, and I think maybe other entrepreneurs listen probably would agree, is I never really fit the mold of an 8 to 5. I was always, I like to do work at different odd hours in the day. I like to go to the gym at different times, do laundry at different times. And so I just never really fit the mold of this 8 to 5. And I kept trying different companies, kept trying different jobs, thinking that maybe that would solve it. But ultimately, I realized that maybe I was just supposed to do my own thing. And so that was really, I think, it was a building thing that, inevitably took me about 11 years to figure out. I got there eventually.
Yeah. It's interesting because they say that school or the traditional thing works for, I think, 10% maybe or something. It's probably less than that, but but we're forced to endure it and just tolerate it. And it's like, it's actually, but what was about pickleball? Was it your hobby? Talk about taking that and going into e-commerce.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't have any background in e-commerce. The only background I always joke that I had in e-commerce is the fact that I purchased from e-commerce websites. That's pretty much the only experience I had. But about two and a half years ago, I learned about pickleball. I learned about the sport. And right when I had a big life change, which was my daughter was born and we moved to Florida, I had really felt myself pretty lost. I had moved to Florida, moved across the country from Colorado, and had a new daughter and wasn't really sure how to get back into the world, make friends, all of that. And I discovered pickleball, and really it was from a friend who kind of dragged me out to go play. And I quickly started to find excitement with the game, the community. People that are listening that have played it before know exactly what I'm talking about. But at that point, I didn't really think about starting a brand. At that point, I was just playing pickleball. I was building out a freelance portfolio, doing some kind of odd jobs and stuff to make money since I had left the corporate world. But the idea for a pickleball brand didn't really sit in really until January of this year, so 2024. And really, as I started to grow into the love of the game and love of the sport, it started to think, okay, maybe I could turn this into something. Maybe I could create something that was more centered around why I love this sport, why I love the outdoors and all of that. And yes, it just started to bloom from there.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is because a lot of startups they from this kind of new thing, and whether it's just AI or like an emerging trend like internet technology, like social media or search.
Sure.
And so you found pickleball, and you're actually on the uprising of the pickleball boom. First time I heard about pickleball was from Gary Vee, but what was it about getting in on the ground and starting there?
Yeah, and I think this also goes back to the idea of when I was in the corporate world, I actually started to gravitate towards the end of my like corporate journey in startups. And what I realized what I loved about startups was like I love the idea of building things. I love the idea of building things, and I loved kind of seeing the inner workings of much less red tape, being able to pretty much do whatever you wanted to do and try different things and see if it works. And so when I started to think about how I could create this brand within the pickleball boom that's happening, I think it was just all these pieces that I'd learned over the last 11 years of my career and that interest to start something new. And so really it was almost like a playground, so to speak, of let's just try different things and see what lands, see what works. And I would say we're still probably, I would say another year or two from the like peak of the pickleball boom. I think it's still growing, but it's been an absolute blast. And I think it really just comes back to, yeah, just loving building things from the ground up.
Yeah. And how has e-commerce, or what are the key insights that you learned? Has it changed since the beginning of Amazon? What new marketing strategies, platforms, how are you using AI? Talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So my background, like I mentioned, is in sales and marketing. So I have a little bit of a leg up in that sense as an entrepreneur going into e-commerce because I do understand marketing and sales from a kind of pretty good level. To your point, I think it has changed a lot, right? Like you have to be really nimble and you have to be able to adjust pretty fast, right? Like we have our shop on Shopify. We also sell on TikTok shop, so we've been growing there. And so I think it's just really being adaptable to the changing market, right? Like we're on Amazon as well. And so just understanding that things are changing, you need to be nimble. And that also goes into what I always tell people, like when they're looking to, for instance, in e-commerce, but just starting a brand in general, is you need to be really clear on what you're good at. You need to be really clear on what you're not good at, but you want to learn. And then the other things, try to outsource. And I think that's what it comes down to for us was there was areas of our business that we were trying to be faster to shift and be nimble, but we couldn't. And so we outsourced different things of the business. Yeah, it's really about being nimble, I would say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because it's quite interesting. And I was talking to another podcast, and they were just saying the best entrepreneurs, they focus on that one skill that they can be the best in the world at, and then
Sure.
they just delegate everything. Talk about just
Yeah.
this AI and this emerging trend, and how are you thinking about AI? How are you positioning? How are you using it in your business?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think if you are not addressing AI in your business and understanding where you can leverage AI, then you're going to be left behind. Like I am a firm believer that AI is going to be and already is a massive piece of not just the marketing world, but just everything that we're doing in our society. And so within our business, I would say we are pretty skillful at AI. And that's, I think, because both me and my co-founder are marketers. And so we understand that at the end of the day, AI is only as good as what you feed it, right? ChatGPT, all the other language models and stuff, they are only as good as what you can feed it. So if you can feed it really strong prompts, if you can feed it really great information, it can break you out of writing ruts. It can create new ideas for you, but you really need to know how to use it. So we use AI in a lot of ways. We use AIs for ideation. We use AIs for different workflows that we're building out within our email funnel. So I think if you don't start now, if you haven't already started, you need to start now. 2025 needs to be the year for all brands to be understanding how to use AI. But if you're just ignoring it and acting like it's not going to be the next big thing, you're going to get left behind, plain and simple.
Yeah, I love that. It was Peter Diamandis said something, I think 4 or 5 years ago. He's, if you're not using AI, you're going to be out of business. Just plain and simple.
100%. Yeah.
The other thing I love about Canyon Pickleball is you've got business goals, you've got this marketing strategic standpoint, you've got a co-founder, which I'll talk to you about a little bit later, but you also commitment to giving back. And how do you incorporate sorry, philanthropy in your business model, and why is it important to you?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's a great question. When my co-founder Rob and I started the business, we always knew that whatever we created, and I've always done this too, just for my own personal ventures, I always knew that I wanted to give back and try to do more. I am just one person. We are just one company, but I think when we can do little pieces to try to help, I think it obviously helps for the greater good. And so when we started Canyon, the whole idea of the brand was the fact that you are outside, you're in nature, right? You're on the pickleball court, you're getting your body moving. And we really saw that connection to being outside, having your body moving. And so when we developed the brand, it was almost kind of a natural occurrence of, okay, what if we make the whole brand identity about the outdoors, right? And so then from there it started to build. And so, all of the paddles are designed off of national parks. We donate a portion of our sales to the national parks. We use sustainable packaging for all of our shipments. And we even have a paddle buyback program where we'll buy your old pickleball paddle, give you a gift card to our store, and then you can use that to buy a new paddle. We're really just trying to do our part, right? Like we know that we can't do everything. And we know that at the end of the day, our pickleball paddles are still made from a lot of plastic. So if we can help offset that in a little bit, I think it's our kind of duty as a new brand to try to do better. So yeah, that was a very big piece for us.
Yeah. And how are you incorporating culture into your brand? Because a lot of companies, they build a brand around their culture. How are you thinking about culture and centering around that as well?
Yeah, I think it also is a big piece, right? Because, at the end of the day, like pickleball, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with pickleball or your audience, but pickleball really is about community. It's about a culture that, it started in the United States. It's growing in the United States. It's starting to grow globally now at this point too. But it really is a United States sport, and it has been kind of becoming part of our culture as a country. And so I think that idea of community, that idea of culture is really embedded in pickleball. And so when we created Canyon, it was almost, again, a natural progression of, okay, how can we embed that idea of building a community around the outdoors, people that want to give back, people that are mission driven, people that want to see more from their brands. So yeah, honestly, it was a perfect combination for us with pickleball and then the brand too.
Yeah. And a lot of people, because it's interesting, because when I talk to a lot of startups, some of them are solopreneurs, but a lot of them have co-founders. And what are things, because I know a lot of co-founders, they split up.
Sure.
What's been key to maintaining a successful partnership as you build your company?
Yeah, the co-founder piece and finding partners, I think I don't want to say it's like absolutely necessary, but there's no way that we could have gotten to the point we're at now without having some type of partnership. And I honestly was pretty lucky to have found my co-founder. We had been synced up through like a marketing mastermind, and we ended up just basically sharing like, hey, do you want to start a business one day? Yeah, me too. Let's just like talk about ideas. At that point, it wasn't even that we would go into business together. It was like, let's just chat about ideas that are interesting to us. So for me, honestly, I think having, whether it's a co-founder or just someone to like spit ideas off of and just bounce ideas off of, is really important. And it's something I talk about on my LinkedIn all the time, because I really don't think that you can get to where you want to go without help. I think it's obviously pretty well known that you can go so much further faster if you can have some people in your network. And the idea of a co-founder, and the reason that we have been able to do so well together, I think it comes down to being really vulnerable with each other. Like we have a daily Zoom call where we just, chat about things that are scaring us and frustrating to us. And I think you have to be that way in order to have a successful partnership. We also see Canyon as just being one of the brands that we start. We really want to go in business to a couple other ventures as well. And it really comes down to just like being vulnerable with each other. I really think I've struck gold being able to find a great partner, but I tell anyone who wants to start a business, like, just start bouncing ideas off your friends, just start chatting with people, because whether it turns into a co-founder situation or just a partner and like you bounce ideas off of, that's also great too.
Yeah. And then a follow-up on that is for those interested, like they're startups and they could be solopreneurs.
Yeah.
How is a co-founder relationship different from like a marriage? Because some people think of their co-founder as like this business partnership marriage, and they view it almost as serious as marrying your spouse. How talk about the similarities and differences.
Yeah, that's really funny. I would say that's like pretty accurate because we have an LLC together, right? Like we're doing taxes for the first time together as our business. And so there is a lot of that, the business side, the logistical side of it. It is a very serious commitment. And I think that is something that you have to understand as well. What I would say, and again, this is the first business I've had where I've had a co-founder and someone who I'm actually in business with. And we actually became friends after the fact that we were already business partners. So we knew each other in this mastermind, but we weren't really necessarily friends yet. We just knew each other. And then we started to grow this friendship as we were growing the business. I don't know what it would be like if it was like a best friend and then you started a business with them. So that can get trickier. And you hear that all the time on podcasts, people talking about breakups and all that kind of stuff. But I think because we went into it with the same business mindset, then we became better friends after. And I think that was like really important. So yeah, there is a lot of similarities between that and a marriage, I can say.
And how is having a co-founder, for example, like you have a co-founder partnership, but how is it different from people that kind of want to have that exposure to the upside of having a co-founder, but and also protect themselves from the downside, like either just forming partnerships or affiliates or just staying in the same mastermind, bouncing ideas, but not a formal co-founder? What factors play into that decision?
Yeah, it's a great question. And honestly, I think this was both of our first times doing this. And so again, I think it was just both being like very open and honest about what we're expecting from the business, what we're expecting from each other, and just being vulnerable with that. But to your question, I think one of the biggest things I always tell people is the more that you show that you are in this like idea mindset or willing to try new things. And by that, I'm posting on LinkedIn all the time about starting new businesses, starting new ideas, bouncing ideas off each other. The more you do that, you attract people that are similar mindset, right? Like the fact that you and I are even having this conversation, like you and I are very similar mindsets, probably a lot of your listeners too. And so the more that you exude that to the world, pretty convinced that you get a lot of that back. And so as you're sharing more and more about like, I'm trying to start this, or I'm thinking about this, even if you're not giving away like the quote unquote secret sauce to a business, I think just doing that is going to help attract more people that might be of like-minded interest. I think everyone's different. Some people can do better with co-founders and partners. Some people maybe would just be better as a solopreneur with no one with them. But at the end of the day, like you do need to have a network of people that you can just chat with because it gets lonely. And maybe you've experienced that too, Christopher, but I know I've been very lonely at times in this solopreneur life. So at the end of the day, you need to have people around you in some capacity.
Yeah. And they say it's lonely at the top. And,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I'm at the top yet, but it's definitely lonely.
the other question, because a lot of audience, they're used to kind of under this mindset, like, especially like the doctor mindset, and they're like, yeah, I'll just do it on my own. It's hard to train people. I do it on my own. It's easier. And for those want to do startups, some people, they want all the credit. That's their idea, that's their baby, and they don't want to share with somebody. So how do you address that if you're a co-founder?
Yeah, it's challenging. I think again, like it comes down to finding the right people and the right person that you can just be open and honest with, because it is one of those things. So for instance, like with pickleball, I'm like the avid pickleball player. My co-founder plays every now and then. He really loves the sport. He's not as obsessed with it as I am, and that's okay, right? Like he does other areas of the business and I do other areas of the business. So I think it's again, just continuing to have those conversations about what you're looking for in the business and what you need at any given point. At the end of the day, like it is a business. Like we are in this to be able to make money. We're in this business to be able to build a better life for our kids and families, et cetera. So I think you just have to continue to say what you need, because you can't just assume that like your co-founder or partners know what you need at any given point. So you need to just communicate what you need and what you're feeling at any given point. And that's really like the make of a good relationship in really anything, right? Even not just business, but
Yeah. What are some of the most important lessons you've learned since starting Canyon Pickleball, and what single piece of advice would you give to someone who's considering a similar entrepreneurial leap, given that we're going into 2025?
Yeah, it's a great question. And honestly, I just posted a LinkedIn post like a couple of days ago, and it was talking about, I don't necessarily believe in New Year's resolutions. I think if you like them, great. If it helps you, great. For me, I like to go into the new year with a new intention or a new purpose. And so that's where I focus. And so I would say the biggest thing that I've learned in this year, which has been like the absolute explosion of my solopreneur journey, not just with Canyon Pickleball, but with other areas of my solopreneur life. And when I move into 2025, the lesson that I want to take is really just action, right? Action always beats inaction. And it sounds so simple, but it's so true. And when we started Canyon Pickleball, we launched it in July. We could have definitely launched it sooner, but we were stuck on inaction. We were in a little bit of like analysis paralysis. Same thing when I was running my copywriting business. There's so many opportunities for us to have inaction in our lives, whether it's just taking that one little step, right? That one little step that's going to move that one domino. But the hard part is we have these big, grandiose New Year's resolutions or ideas for what you want to do. And it's this big domino, right? And you can't knock over the big domino with one little domino. You have to knock the little one, the next one. And it's just little steps. So for me, my intention for 2025 and what I've learned, my biggest piece of advice for anyone that's starting a business is action. Just take the first step and then take the next step and the next one. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that because I started the podcast in 2020 and I was just
Nice.
bootstrapping it and treating it like a startup, just doing everything myself and then just creating an MVP, get it monetized, and
Nice.
it wasn't even the best podcast, but I just kept, and then now it's just action, just massive action. Tony Robbins says, what's next for Canyon Pickleball? What can we expect in 2025? And how can people find you and check out your work?
Yeah, so honestly, where I see Canyon Pickleball going next. So right now we have 4 paddle designs that are off of 4 different national parks and landscapes. We are going to be doing about 2 new drops of new designs about every month in 2025. So we're going to be coming out with a bunch of new national parks that everyone's going to be really excited about. But what we also see Canyon Pickleball kind of continuing to move is more in just like the lifestyle outdoorsy space. So we want to get into hats. We want to get into some more sustainable clothing areas. So really just creating this outdoor lifestyle brand that's not just only focused on pickleball. So I think 2025 is going to be a really great year. So yeah, you can find out all about us, just canyonpickleball.com, or on Instagram at Canyon Pickleball, TikTok. You can find us on all our socials. On LinkedIn, you can find me. I'm always posting stuff about solopreneur life and trying to build continued financial freedom. So you can always find me there. But yeah, we're just really excited for what's to come in 2025. I know it sounds like you're doing a lot of big things as well.
Awesome. I really enjoyed talking with you, and congratulations to your success and to your continued success in 2025. And I keep up the great work, and thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, super excited to follow your progress as well. And yeah, continuing to support you. So yeah, thanks so much for having me.